Here I am in Pueblo, Colorado. Have you ever heard the story of Van Halen, David Lee Roth, trashing a place because of brown M&Ms? It happened here in Pueblo. If you don't know this story, I'll tell you while I'm walking back to my hotel. I just ate at this Brews Ale House. It was delicious. So, there's a legendary story about Van Halen. They used to have in their contract something that was so ridiculous that people thought artists are losing their minds. In the 80s, they started doing shows that were so huge, it wasn't just like 2 or 3 tractor trailers pulling in, it was like nine semis, with all the gear, pyrotechnics. The contract was the size of a Yellow Pages. I mean, it was humongous for any kind of act that was going on the road somewhere other than like a Madison Square Garden in New York City that was used to having a big act. And so a group like Van Halen at the very top in the peak, they were actually going to little cities around the country and putting on a huge show. Now, what would happen is if they didn't have everything line up exactly from their contract, people could be killed. Things wouldn't work with the sound, with the lights. Things might fall apart. And so they put in their contract something that has confused people for years. And if you've never heard this story, I hope I'm telling it right. This is how I remember it, at least. They decided to put in their contract, somewhere just right in the middle, hey, no brown M&Ms in our dressing room. And they had stuff like a fruit plate and we need all this stuff. And it was so specific, it said no brown M&Ms. And David Lee Roth says that all they had to do at every single stop, at every single gig, was walk into the green room, backstage, look and see if there was a bowl of M&Ms. And if there was, if it had brown M&Ms in it, they knew that they had to check every single thing on their spec list, everything from their writer, their audio-visual, their pyrotechnics, everything. Something was going to go wrong because somebody didn't keep the promise. Yeah, see what I did there? Pueblo, here we are. Somebody didn't keep the promise and read the whole contract. And so that's why that was put in there. And when David Lee Roth and Van Halen got here to the university here in Pueblo, and they got here and for some reason, they had just gone ahead and skipped through a bunch of the contract and thinking, we don't need to really do everything that it says. We'll just do what we can. And so what happened is Van Halen gets here to this city and finds out that they have brown M&Ms in the bowl in their dressing room. So he trashed the dressing room before the show at the university, ripped the place apart, $12,000 worth of damage. He did like a Shakespearean, like, do I see brown M&Ms? And then so he's like, hey, jump. So he just ripped the whole place apart. And then all of a sudden what happened in the showroom was what was really interesting. You see, they had set all the equipment, the heavy equipment, at a weight that was so strong, it was so heavy that it was a brand new floor, like a rubber floor, and it like crashed through the floor apparently. It ruined all of this equipment. It ruined everything in this building. It caused over $85,000 worth of damage. And so the show did not go on that night. Why do I tell you the whole thing? Because I think that's a fascinating story. Because David Lee Roth was blamed and Van Halen was blamed for being prima donnas who needed, brown M&Ms to be removed from the M&M bowl in their dressing room, when in reality, Van Halen was asking every client to read every single line, honor what they were needing and asking, because if they didn't, the floor would fall apart from the weight of the sound system. Somebody could be hurt or killed with the pyrotechnics. It's one of the great examples of a band coming up with a solution creatively to see if somebody's really going to do what they're doing. It's like the ultimate accountability story. And it is the promise. Is your promise to read the whole contract or just skip through it? Read the whole email or just skim over it? I know that, recently I've posted stuff, people just like start commenting before they even read the whole thing. So I guess the attention's in the details, right? And tomorrow I'll be speaking to these wonderful people that work here and in town, and I'm excited to do that. But imagine if I didn't check all the details. I mean, little things happen like that, where you just miss one thing and everything else falls apart. And that's part of the promise to yourself, to say, I'm gonna take the time to read this entire contract. And if it says no brown M&Ms, then I will do that ridiculous request, because just like in Van Halen's case, they had a reason for that ridiculousness. No brown M&Ms. No, say that a million times. No brown M&Ms. And yeah, Van Halen was like, it's always brought up when there's an artist that's like a prima donna and needs something extra or special. But they put it in there for a reason. No brown M&Ms. Keep the promise.